What is up, bros? Be Josh here, and today's video is a video I've been wanting to work on for a while, so I finally got it done, and here it is. So hope you guys enjoy it, because this is a question that I get asked all the time on which premium ships do I recommend. So I thought I'd make a top 5 list, as well as do some runners up as well, because there are just, as you know, so many premium ships in this game now. So which ones are the ones to pick? Now, throughout this list, I'm not listing the best ships. I'm not listing the ones that are most OP. That's a different video. I'm listing the ones I really recommend, and I'll go over the reasons why I recommend these ships, not only for their value, but maybe for difference in play style, uniqueness, just strength, overall fun. So I'm not saying that these ones are the best, and you can obviously like your own ships. I'm just saying these are the ships that I recommend to have the most fun and just make the grind in this game a little bit easier for you, and also hopefully get some deals along the way. At number 5, we actually have 2 battleships in this tier, and I'm just going to combine them both because they're both tier 6 battleships, and that's the Arizona, the USN tier 6 battleship, as well as the Warspite, the Royal Navy tier 6 battleship. Both of these premiums have been around for a long time, and both of these are really good at this tier, a tier that has a lot, as you can see, a lot of premium ships and a lot of premium battleships, but both are really good for the tier, but both have different play styles. Arizona, kind of a tankier sniper, and then the Warspite, which is this almost god tier tanky close range battleship with a bit more of secondaries and AA, with the Arizona being more about more shells going out. Again, this is going to be a bit more on a playstyle. Do you like to get in close, or do you like to be at a bit more range? Also, do you want a USN trainer with the Arizona, or do you want a UK trainer with the Warspite? Now, the Arizona at tier 6 has been solid since day one, and the reason being is this not only brings a tanky tier 6 battleship, but as well as being an overall sniper. In the past, you tended to see one or the other. This kind of has a jack of all trades with being high main battery DPM, as well as just a good overall tanking ship. Now, one thing that's nice about this ship is USN trainers are always a prime, and if you can get them, you definitely want to use them. But tier 6 is just so fun. Yes, it does have a tad of a slower speed, which is always a bummer on USN battleships, but overall you can make up for that by getting into good areas with a long range on its shells, as well as having the spotter plane if you need to, and then getting into brawling situations if you really need to as well. Going along with the New Mexico, it's just a good trainer alongside it, and overall just a really strong and exciting ship to play. Downside about this ship is you could potentially get struck by CVs because the AA tends to be low, but that's really the only downside of the ship. So just go out there, have some fun with this, and for tier 6, I think this is a fantastic buy. Not a ship I'm expecting to see change too much, but at tier 6, really good. The Warspite itself, though, is a tried and true champion, and is actually one you could have got for free during the Royal Navy event. So if you were able to do that, it was definitely worth your time. But just purchasing it in the premium shop as well, it's still amazing. The Warspite is going to be a tankier tier 6 with basically the ability to heal a lot of the citadel damage, which a lot of ships can't. Downside of this is the turrets are extremely slow, but you can offset those with one of the new premium captains, as well as expert marksmanship, so speccing into that a little bit. But if you enjoy getting those secondary battles in and getting close and turning yourself into a bit more of a brawler at tier 6, which is always a good time. Although no torpedoes, you do have the armor to defend yourself, as well as the extra heal that the Royal Navy battleship is kind of known for. Get a good mix of secondaries, a good mix of AA, amazing heals, and then those guns. Although you're shooting out less shells, you have a bigger caliber, so you can really just punch through battleships, as you can even see right here going against the Arizona, which is the perfect kind of show off here. You can really just use those shells to punch through that armor and get big salvos on those guys. A really fun ship to play. As you can see, the secondaries are popping off as well. This was during a ranked sprint battle, so the Arizona and the Warspite tend to be some of the strongest at this tier. Really just above, a little bit above the tech tree ships, which is kind of what you're looking for. And again, big caliber shells, so you can get that punch through. And also the tier 6 price is always relatively affordable, and you can easily go out and make tons of credits. Again, doesn't matter which way you're angling with the Warspite. At number 4, we have one of the newest premiums to hit World of Warships, that is the T-61. Now, again, this may not be for everyone. Not everyone is a battleship player, a destroyer player, but these are the ones that I recommend and I have the most fun with. But the T-61, I think, is a fantastic value. Again, using that Tier 6 price tag, a relatively cheap compared to, let's say, the Tier 7, Tier 8, and one that you can have a lot of success with. What this ship brought is a good DD for new players. You have a good health pool, you have good guns, you have good torpedoes, and you have sonar to protect yourself with it being a German destroyer. As well as, if you do get bottom tiered, you have a 6.1 kilometer detection that will just allow you to be an overall good ship. Now, when you actually go out and play this ship, you're going to be using everything. So not only does this teach you that you have guns and you have torps and you have offensive tools and defensive tools, you can really go be just good at everything. There isn't really a downside to this ship. You could make fun of its AA rating, but not really many DDs at Tier 6 are going to have a high AA rating. So that's kind of not very fair, in my opinion, to make fun of a ship that not really anything else has at the tier. Yeah, the Monahan can have an AA consumable, but you're not going to be getting any clear skies. But the T-61, one of the newest DDs, and actually, I just think an overall good DD for new players. I think when it comes to a lot of lines on a lot of DDs, especially premiums, they tend to be very kind of focused on one thing, either all about torps or all about guns. German destroyers just known for being solid at basically everything. And really, again, at the Tier 6 price, it's fantastic. And even it's just really good at preparing you to just play overall using all your tools. Really, this is a great trainer for that. Also, if you are going up through the German destroyer line, this is a fantastic trainer. And not only is it just good, it's a really good destroyer at Tier 6, it's extremely fun as well because you have speed, you have torps, you have guns, you basically have everything, and there's not really much of a downside. So definitely one of the destroyers. I would pick up the first destroyer, not the only destroyer on this list, but the first destroyer in the top 5 that I would definitely check out and have a lot of fun with. And again, you can go pick on a lot of the DDs that you kind of have an advantage on with that super low detection. And again, if you get bottom tiered, who really cares? You'll be fine. It's really good. At number 3, there's actually another twofer here with the Atlanta and the USS Flint. Now, the Atlanta is the premium ship you can go buy through the premium shop, and this is one people either love or hate, but I love that it brings a very unique playstyle with a ton of guns, very fast reload, rainbow arcs, and just the worst thing a CV can run into. Now, I did add the USS Flint on here. We did just go through the Snowflake event, so people do have some excess seal. So you can't purchase the USS Flint through the premium store, but if you do have the steel, I would consider this a very good pickup because it's extremely fun. Now, what you want to do to get the USS Flint is go through and actually go into the arsenal. You'll see how much steel you have, depending on how much steel you have, and go through the ships, and you can buy the Flint here. So you will be able to buy the Atlanta through the premium store. If you have the steel, you can pick up the Flint. I also recommend, they do play very similar. The thing about the Flint is the Flint has one less gun on each side. As you see right here, that's the Indianapolis, that's not the Atlanta. The Atlanta has one wing gun right here. The Flint does not. But one thing that the Atlanta has radar as its consumable, and the USS Flint has smoke. So the USS Flint actually up tiers a tad better because you can make its own cover. So I would personally, if I was going to get one of these two and had the steel, I would get the Flint. But the Atlanta is also fantastic, and the bane of existence for DDs, especially in those mid tiers. If you get within that radar range, which is 8.5 kilometers of the Atlanta, and you are a destroyer, basically you're going back to port in relatively quickly. As you can see, the reload on this thing is next level with shooting out just 1 billion shells a minute. And again, if you are going to try to smoke up within Atlanta, we've all gone against an Atlanta. We've all gone around a corner and spotted an Atlanta and then gone, well, it was a fun game. We did it while we could. But one thing you can also do is just pump out massive amounts of damage. Just big DPM, and using the torps on the Atlanta. The torp has 4.5 kilometer torps. They aren't your main type of damage, but if you do get into situations, you do have that ace up your sleeve to drop some torps and really kind of work down an entire battleship. As you can see right here, I kind of got myself into a pickle, but what we're going to do is just, the best offense is a good, good defense, but how about the best defense is a good offense when it comes to the Atlanta? So we're going to poke ourselves in here, drop our torps, and then just try to DPM. Now, one thing that's amazing on these is using the skill Inertia Fuse. Your damage from your HE cells or HE shells is just going to be out of this world. But not having a lot of survivability, you are very light cruisers, so you have to be very careful with where you go. Everyone's been in Atlanta that has gotten dev struck, but you do have to be a little careful. So good map awareness. So maybe not the easiest thing for new players, but I do recommend it because it is unique and brings something new to the game. Now the Flint is kind of a next level ship on itself. The Atlanta just being overall great with radar. The Flint kind of brings a whole new avenue of damage, and that's creating your own cover, which the Atlanta actually needs to be super successful. The Atlanta is not what you would consider an open water ship. The Atlanta kind of relies on having cover, but the Flint can really make its own cover because it has 4 charges of smokes, assuming you have Superintendent and the premium consumable. So again, high DPM, and you have different types of torps. Instead of 4.5 kilometers, these go up to 9.2. So a bit more damage on those as well. So you are a bit more dangerous even at max range, and you can actually go in and do a tad more damage with those torps, forcing those repairs and then continuing to pump damage out with those guns. Now, one thing you love to see is when battleships will push in relatively close to you. If you do that, then you are basically good to go. Another ship that I just find, now obviously this is going to be a tad harder to get because it does cost steel, and steel is actually pretty rare when it comes to ships. In World of Warships, it's not the easiest thing to get, but one upside about these is they are extremely lightly armored, and one thing that happens is these things called overpens in this game. So it's kind of a joke that you have to overpen in Atlanta to death. That's always a joke I kind of say on the stream, and it's the same thing with the Flint. It's going to have the same armor profile, but basically with these two ships, high damage, high rates of fire, and just a lot. Now, it's always the worst thing in this world to get ripple fire to death. That's just holding down the mouse instead of double clicking like I'm doing right now, but just slowly getting tanked down, lit on fire, and there's really nothing you can do because most of the time you just can't see them. But as we have 2 battleships really pushing in, we're kind of again in another pickle. But one thing that happens is you can get hit hard, but sometimes the RNG gods throw you a bit of a bone here, and you don't get obliterated off the planet. Now, if you were a tad more of a armored cruiser, you'd probably get citadeled or full penned a bit more. But as you can see right here, we took almost no damage. The life of the lightly armored cruiser, and you can continue to just burn down. As you've seen, my damage has basically gone from 40k to, in just a couple minutes, almost 100,000, and you'll see us actually finish off both of these battleships, I believe, and kind of waiting for that. So as you see, a bit of a little damage hit and a bit of a high damage hit. But the thing you got to keep doing with this is the best offense is, or the best defense is a good offense when it comes to these. Again, you are the bane of any kind of aircraft carrier, and you can really just keep pumping out that damage. Although the calibers, the shells are pretty small in the caliber size, so you're not going to be really pumping a lot of damage out on that thicker armor parts of the ship. But one thing you are really good at is lighting that that superstructure on fire, which you can see as I'm aiming a tad higher on these. But having those longer range torps that hit harder is a nice little weapon to have when it comes to this. Again, the Atlanta is fantastic. It's just the easier one to get. If you can pick up the Flint, it's probably the steel ship that I recommend the most. And obviously, if you get some RNG, it's Overpen City. So down go 2 battleships and just a fun ship to play overall. Both of these are great. That's why I wanted to add them both in. Another newer addition to the premium life that is World of Warships is the USS Massachusetts. Now, there's actually 2 versions of this. They are exactly the same. They just look cosmetically different. That's the Massachusetts and the Massachusetts B. This was the Black Friday one. Actually, if you could get this camo, it does look much cooler. It's not a camo, I guess, but this version of the ship, it looks much cooler. I love this camo. I think these are some of the best looking ones in the game. But the normal Massachusetts is a good mix, a good branch of what we've seen in a lot of the German battleships. something like the Tirpitz, which is also something I will include here. The Tirpitz is another fantastic ship, but the Massachusetts is kind of the bridge between the USN playstyle and the German playstyle. If you've ever played the German battleships, you know they're all about secondaries, and if you've ever played the USN line, you know they're all about kind of bow tanking front on play. This is a kind of the brainchild of both of those lines mixed in together, and the Massachusetts gives you a secondary monster with a USN body. So a bit of a Frankenstein ship. Also, at this number 2, I'm going to throw in another twofer. I know I'm doing this a lot, but this is a bit more on playstyle. Massachusetts as well as the Tirpitz. Tirpitz being one of the oldest premiums in this game and still one that is extremely good. Again, more of a preference on this. Personally, I would recommend the Massachusetts more. I think the Tirpitz has been a tad power crept over time, but there's nothing scarier than a Tirpitz pushing into you because it's still the only tier 8 battleship that really has consistent torps and can really push in and make a playmaker. There's not really much of a better playmaker when it comes to the Tirpitz. Now, the Massachusetts is fantastic at tier 8, and I would consider it to be one of the more fun ships at tier 8 because it's just a good mix of everything. You have the ability to not only shoot down planes because of that USNAA, but also using your main guns for damage as well as your secondaries for just a passive damage. In any real games, I like to make stuff that gives you passive damage. So anytime you can really work in a secondary setup when it comes to battleships, it's just free damage. It really, really is. Downside about this ship is it tends to take a tad higher of a captain for the USS Massachusetts because you want to get several 4-point captain skills. So that's a bit of a downer. You want AFT, you want manual secondaries, as well as you want a inertia fuse on your secondaries to really pump out a lot of that damage. But you can get into, once you do get that captain, it's a tier 8, so you'll get a lot of XP. You can just kind of farm damage. It's so much fun. I think this is one of the more fun ships on this line. Now, is it top tier for being the best at tier 8? I don't think so because, well, I would definitely consider it one of the better ones, but if it was to be a rank 8 or like rank battles at tier 8, I think the Massachusetts wouldn't quite be there. But I think the Massachusetts is more fun than it is top tier good. Now, it's still extremely good. What you're doing, though, is the ship itself is trading some accuracy of its shells to be this secondary god that is the ship. Another quick downside, but still overall fantastic, is the secondaries tend to be on the side of the ship. USN battleships tend to be bow-in style of play, but with that, you can really start getting some secondaries onto stuff that is on your sides more than anything. But as you can see right here, I just completely let my secondaries focus on the ship to my right, and I'll just focus my guns on something else. That's what you can do with that manual secondaries, and again, it just feeds you more and more kills. Massachusetts definitely worth picking up, one of my highest recommended ships, especially at tier 8 if you're looking for a good tier 8 ship. It's so much fun and way worth it when it comes to USN trainers. Now the Tirpitz, just a tried and true ship. It's so good. It still is so much fun. Although it has been power crept a little bit. AP bombs from CVs kind of pick on it, but it's still just extremely fun. Now, another thing is just letting secondaries do the work for you, focusing main batteries on one ship and then secondaries on another. Again, I love any time you can actually do that. It makes you just this dual threat. And if something is within that range, as you see right here, I'm not really focusing my main turrets on extremely low ships. If that other ship would have popped up, I would have definitely done that. But if I'm in secondary range, you can just, you get that main battery on one ship and those secondaries on another, then you can really finish that in. As soon as that ship pops back up within that secondary range, they're right in there. And always trying to find that right position to really push and get those 6-kilometer torps in. It's the ace in the sleeve that the Tirpitz has, and it's just an awesome tool to really use. But just look at those fireworks going off, the shooting stars as people have called them. Now, one of the good things is the Tirpitz doesn't really take citadels. I guess maybe like the weird random ones every once in a while, but it's that German turtleback style armor. And so if you are newer to the game, it doesn't really teach you battleships that well, but if you're kind of used to it, it's a fantastic thing, because I think that's what's really popular with the German battleships for newer players, is they don't quite get punished as bad. Obviously, you'll take high alpha damage strikes on yourself, but you won't take those secondaries. again, there's this, you won't take those big citadels as the secondaries, just get that kill. Now, you can see right here is just the clutch playmaking that this ship can do. Again, we took a big hit there, but that's what the German battleships do so well. And just like that, you have the playmaking ability. Secondaries on one ship, torpedoes on another, and then we're going to get main battery on another ship. You have one set of torpedoes on each side, both going to 6 kilometers. And again, pretty damn tanky. We're taking 4 battleships, I think, at once right now. And also, we're getting our asses whooped. But you can still survive just a tad longer and pump out just an extreme amount of damage. What is that? That was like 60k damage and just, if not more, in about 30 seconds. So nothing can do what the Tirpitz still can. And it's still such a good pickup if you want a good German trainer. I think at number 1, it's not much of a surprise, and that is the Tier 7 battleship, the Scharnhorst. This has been another ship that has just been so good for so long. Again, another German ship. I think the German kind of playstyle of these battleships, especially the premiums, bring a very fun playstyle, and one that's actually very user-friendly for a lot of new players. The thing about the Scharnhorst is it's just kind of this perfect little pocket battleship. It's fast, it has torps, it has good AA, it has good secondaries, it has good guns against mainly lighter targets. That is one thing that is a bit of a bummer. So a bit of a learning curve when it comes to the Scharnhorst, learning to use the right ammos. But once you do, you'll pick it up very quickly. And having the main batteries, although lower caliber, they have a very fast reload. And I just think this is kind of the perfect premium ship. Not only are you getting the Tier 7 perfect matchmaking that it really has, you're getting a fantastic mix of just very fun playstyle with something that's actually quite unique and strong for the tier. Now, best part about the Scharnhorst is it does have so many tools you can use, as I said. It has torpedoes, it has fast firing main guns for a battleship, it has good health pool, good German turtleback armor, and can just really get you in a lot of fun engagements and actually out of a lot of fun engagements as well because of the type of armor it has and survivability. One thing you can do is also torp DDs, which is always hilarious when it comes to it, and especially when a DD tries to push you. Surprise, surprise, you're not the only class that has torps, and actually you just got torped by a battleship. One thing it has too is it just has a way to make up for losing or missing a salvo. On most battleships, especially at this tier, you're into the high 20 seconds or even the 30-second range. With the Scharnhorst, you're much lower than that at 20. So even if you miss a shot, you can reload, especially with Adrenaline Rush, the captain skill, you can get that down to 16, 17 seconds, depending on how much damage you take. So even if you miss one, you can line it up, get that shot back, and then slam it for the next one, or continue to just do consistent damage. Honestly, the only downside about this ship is that the size of caliber on its main battery shells really does give you a bit to be desired when it comes to AP against bigger targets, more armor targets. And what that can do is be a bit of a bummer for some people, but that's when you learn to use both types of ammo. Using HE and AP is a must when it comes to this ship, although it is a battleship. But really, the ability to just use those, using AP against the lesser armored targets, like that poor little Fiji. As I said, missed a couple salvos, but we got it back. And you're learning to use both AP as well as HE when it comes to bigger armored targets like other battleships, as shooting down planes and secondaries and all that kind of good stuff. That, I would say, that's probably the only downside, but once you learn how to do that, it's also fantastic. Again, Scharnhorst is not only an AP or an HE ship. One last thing is just getting yourself into situations. This is very much a German-esque of letting other things focus you while you focus something else. So as we saw with the Massachusetts even and the Tirpitz, we put secondaries on one target and main battery on another. Here we're tanking a Colorado in front of us as well as shooting at the CV. You know, we can bow tank this guy, even though he will punch us because our armor will take that higher alpha damage, but we won't take those citadels. We can continue to focus that and tank this damage while we get that and then go and get our Kraken. It's not too much of a surprise that the Scharnhorst is my most recommended ship. It's just so good at basically everything without really having a weak spot. Now with the Scharnhorst rounding out our top 5, there are so many good premiums that I have to add in a few runners up. And the first runner up we're going to have to go over is the Perth. A few main reasons. The Perth is extremely strong at tier 6, another very fun tier, as well as it bringing a very unique playstyle. This is a cruiser that was the first one from the Commonwealth line, its own separate nation, and what it brought was an extremely low detection for a cruiser, as well as the first version of the rolling smoke. So something that's very unique and can actually be used as an awesome offensive tool as well as defensive tool. I think this is a fantastic pickup if you've ever had it. It brings something unique to the game, which I love, and it's a bit stronger than its counterpart. A lot of people have checked out the Haida, a very similar ship for the Pan Asian, the first Pan Asian cruiser, but the Perth is just a tad stronger in my opinion. The Haida's thing is it has AA. You can just do more offensive power with the Perth, so I definitely think this is worth picking up, as well as one of the downside, I guess, is being a Commonwealth, so you have to start over with a brand new captain. But overall, just a fun play style that you can really enjoy at a good tier. Now, the Perth has that rolling smoke, as well as torps, and just 8 shells going out of 152, so you're pumping out a decent amount of damage when it comes to ships. You can use inertia fuse, which is fantastic, but using that rolling smoke to your advantage and getting more and more damage on the target without them really ever seeing you. Yes, people have gotten better at shooting into smoke, but continuously moving and using both the torps and the main battery to get things done, that's something that you can definitely use and really be a deadly threat when it comes to that. Now, if you've ever played a rolling smoke class, if you can find the right way and the right speed, which tends to be about a quarter of speed on the throttle, just a tad higher than that, you kind of roll out of the puff. And if you guys don't know what the rolling smoke is, what it is a long duration of puffs when it comes to smoke. There's a lot of puffs that go out, but the puffs last a very short amount of time. So kind of, as we see with like a USN destroyer, we see several puffs that go out and then that smoke lasts a long time. This is the opposite. So the actual puffs themselves don't last that long, about 10 seconds, but a lot of them go. So it's called a rolling smoke. They constantly move, and basically it keeps you in there. But one thing you can do is continue to get closer to ships and continue to pump out damage. One thing this teaches you, a good teaching tool, is to learn your firing in smoke range, which you should learn for everything that has smoke, is it teaches you how to use that and really kind of min-max to pump out as much damage as possible. Extremely deadly ship if played correctly, and also just super fun. I highly recommend this ship if anybody can pick it up, and if you can get into those right situations, using those torps, using those guns, using that low detection to actually disengage and reset. And then with the lack of range, you do have that spotter plane, so it's fantastic. I actually enjoyed this ship a lot during the ranked sprint, the game I played in it. We did like a premium gauntlet when it came to this, and I think the Perth was one of the more fun ships that I actually played. Very underrated, not many people have this ship, and the ones that do kind of think of it as like it's our own little treasure that not many other people have get to play. For our second runner-up, we're actually going to roll with another Commonwealth ship, and that is the HMCS Haida, the pride of the Canadian fleet in World of Warships, the first Canadian ship that's come to World of Warships, and this thing is a god tier, tier 7. Now, the reason I say all these wonderful things about it, but don't have it in my top 5 recommend it, is it does take a little bit to learn, because it also has that rolling smoke when it comes to this ship. So, maybe not new player friendly, but if you know the basics of DDs, you will really enjoy this ship. And it's extremely strong at tier 7. Tier 7 has been very power crept, and what that means is over time the newer ships have continued to get stronger and stronger. And what I mean by that is its detection. 5.7 kilometer detection is super low for this tier, and really it's kind of ridden that power creep wave and is right at the front, and really is just kind of reaping the benefits of these lower and lower detections. The best part is once you learn the basics, the Haida is extremely strong. But using that that rolling smoke can be difficult at first for a destroyer. I find it to be more of a better with cruisers than it so much with DDs. But once you learn how to use it, you can actually kind of abuse it in a way. But 5.7 kilometer detection, it doesn't matter if it is bottom tiered or not. But at tier 7, it's just so good. It's a perfect mix of high DPM out of its guns, good survivability, and if you can, use that sonar for not only offensive and defensive situations, and really kind of just pick on everything else at this tier. When going against IGN DDs, they tend to be a lower detection, and their whole thing is about being torp destroyers. Well, surprise, surprise, the Haida has as low, if not lower, detection than some of these torp destroyers, and there's nothing they can really do about it. This thing is just so next level good that it really doesn't matter, and can really get yourself into a lot of situations to just kind of come back and use both the torps and the guns. High rates of fire on the ship, and you can go out there and just get tons of Krakens. This is a perfect kind of ship to go out and be what I call an anti-destroyer. And what that means is going out and defending your team against the enemy DDs by going out and hunting them. One of the downsides is you do only have a single set of torps that you can launch in a narrow spread or single torp spreads. So that is kind of fun, but you are better against DDs than you are against, let's say, cruisers and battleships, because you do lack that double torp spread. So a bit of a bummer there, only one set of 4 going out, but it does have kind of a fast reload, so you can use it. But again, cleaning up enemy ships with it is no big deal, and they're still torps. So especially at a tier where you are going to tend to play against some battleships that are kind of white line sailing, straight line sailing, they definitely can go get a flood on one ship and continue to farm damage with those guns. Again, what this ship is fantastic at is going out and hunting destroyers, pumping out damage, using that low detection, as well as a relatively big health pool for this tier, and using that high DPM to do a lot of damage against those enemy DDs. You're going to basically get that first salvo on almost everything, and at 5.7 km detection, it doesn't matter even if you're bottom tiered, because you out detect nearly all of the tier 8 and tier 9 destroyers. That's just how strong this DD actually is. Again, I keep praising this destroyer, but the reason is it does take a little bit to kind of get used to. It's not the normal kind of DD that you'd see in the past with I lay my smoke, now I sit in my smoke. This one you have to constantly keep moving, because you have to be a little careful with sitting in it, because it's one puff. Now, rounding out the list of runners up with the tier 8 Royal Navy destroyer, the Cossack. Now, this thing is out of this world too, just like the Haida. It's basically a tier 8 version of the Haida. Same thing. The downside of this ship is that it has one set of 4 torps, but what you lose in torps, you make up in basically everything else. Good health pool, great guns, super low detection at 5.5. We thought the 5.7 was really low for this type of ship. This is 5.5 at a tier higher. Again, another ship that doesn't care. You could have actually gotten this ship for about $1 during the Royal Navy event, but still, even at full price, I see that there's value there. One reason why I didn't put this on the top 5 recommended list is you could, and then to the runner-up instead, is you can get very similar play styles out of the Lightning, the tier 8 Royal Navy destroyer. Very similar. You lose a set of the main battery turrets, but you make up and you get a second set of torpedoes. So that's a bit more of a normal destroyer, with having 2 torp sets with 1 less main battery gun. Now, the Royal Navy line has a bit of a unique smoke, which does also take a little while to get used to, but once you get used to it, you actually fall in love with it. And that is a lot of smokes, but for a very short duration. This was kind of brought up during the Pan Asian line. That was their niche, but the Royal Navy line says, hold my beer, I can also do that as well, and that's actually more enjoyable than the Pan Asian line. One thing you can see here is it doesn't matter if you're bottom tier. You can go against tier 10 DDs, and since you tend to get, like, the Cossack outspots a Shimakaze. The Shimakaze is known as being the torp boat, and you out detect it. So what ends up happening is you're going to get that first salvo, which you'll end up getting the second salvo most likely before a DD can actually return fire. And with that, you have that advantage. So then a lot of Shima players or IGN DD players are going to try to just get torps out instead. So you have this window of almost immunity. And then the best part is Royal Navy line has long duration, short range sonar. So those torps that they're trying to get off on you, you can kind of laugh at and see them coming from a mile away. So just a nasty, nasty destroyer hunting DD. Now with that sonar, you can also use it both defensively and offensively, as you see right here, using radio location, which I think is fantastic skill to use on ships like this, is you can round the corners and spot DDs and use it actually offensively. Now another thing, it teaches you to fire and smoke of what your range is. So the thing is, you have a 3-kilometer spotting range with your sonar, but when you fire and smoke, it's 2.7. But as you see right here, the damage, the alpha damage when it comes to the ship is just insane. So even going against a similar ship at the tier, another tier at DD, you just go in and you absolutely wreck face. Now the Cossack has gone through multiple changes, And with those changes, as you see right there, they're trying to just get torps off, but we have Hydros. We saw him from a mile away. And so I'll take a trade of taking almost no damage compared to killing an entire tier 8 DD. This ship has gone through a lot of changes. It started out as being a very poor destroyer, almost not even worth your time playing. But nowadays, it's fantastic, beloved by anybody that really has it. I think right now it's probably my most played ship. And one of the biggest buffs it got was its torpedo boost. And so only having that one set of torpedoes was a bummer. Again, being a situation where you could launch narrow spread and then single file, depending on what you like to play. It got a bonus through the torpedo load from going from, I believe, 90 some seconds down to 66. So very low, very quick. And as you see, you can use those short smokes to get away from your enemy. Remember, 5.5 kilometer detection on a ship with these kinds of guns. But just killing a little bit of time, trying to force those repairs on battleships. And then what you do is you have a torp set ready, and you can try to force that repair, get a flood, get fires. Again, you have 8 shells firing out, I believe, at every 4.5 seconds. So just a high chance of getting fires. Demo expert not needed on this. Also inertia fuse not needed on this to be successful. You have that 120 millimeter shells, which is actually fantastic. And so one thing you can do though is using that short cooldown smoke. Pop this, you pop your sonar, pop your smoke, fire your guns, launch your torpedoes, rinse, repeat, and then you see the bad guys kind of just die off. Again, probably my most played ship, but again, I didn't put this on the top 5 recommended because it does take a little while. I think like the T61 is just kind of plug and play. The Cossack does take a tad to get used to on its style, especially since it has a unique style smoke, and not having that extra torpedo tube can be tough for most people. But if you are a DD lover, I think any of the DDs on this list will be fantastic. Cossack being probably one of my favorite to play right now, but again, it's tough for me to recommend a DD that takes a little bit to get used to, and maybe might be a tad hard for some people to play, but still fantastic. At tier 8, it's awesome. And overall, this list is packed full of premium ships. There are so many premium ships in this game these days that it's hard to really kind of pick out which ones I recommend. I'm doing an entire series on which ships are worth it. If you haven't been checking those out, those have been a lot of fun and been getting a lot of feedback. But for these ships in general, I think you can't go wrong with any of these ships that I put on that list. Again, this is just a list of ships that I recommend for people. You can pick any of these. I'm not saying these are the best ships. I'm not saying, these are pay to win ships. I'm not saying that these are the ones that you need to like as well. These are just the ones that I recommend for people picking up. If I were to only have 7 or 8 ships, I would probably just pick these ones. I think they bring not only fun play style, most of them are extremely strong for their tier. Maybe not the strongest, but extremely strong. And they're good credit makers. They're good trainers on nations that you tend to have a lot of ships to play with. And overall, these just bring fun, unique play styles. I really, really enjoy them. So again, that's my list, my top 5 recommended premium ships, as well as with some runners up. There's just too many to not include some of those ships. And I really hope this is pretty insightful for you guys, not only talking about the ships itself, but showing some gameplay as well. Let me know in the comments below if one of your favorite ships was on this list, and if you think one of them should be added, and if you, I guess, what are your top 5 favorite premiums? I'd be interested to see in the comments down below. But anyways, guys, that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Remember to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.